have you seen on film from Curtis Samuel, and how do you kind of matchup issues does he present?
In my opinion, he's probably the best player on the offense. He's pretty good, real versatile, has a lot of speed. They use him in different positions, and we just really have to keep our eyes on him because a lot of the times he tells us where the balls is going. So, he's definitely an important part of that offense and somebody that we really have to look at.
Do you put one guy on him, or is it just a team effort depending on where he is in the formation?
It depends. It depends. I don't really want to say too much about what we're going to do, but like I said, he's definitely a good player, and we're not really stepping all the way out of our element just to, look at him, but, he's definitely been a point of emphasis.
What's the most difficult thing about trying to defend a guy that they can just line up all over the place and really use in so many variety of situations?
I don't really think it's that difficult just because of the good skill set that we have on defense. If they try to send him to one side of the field, both of our corners are good. In the slot, we have a nickel, and our safeties can come down and cover also. So, and with him coming out the backfield, our D-line is definitely excellent, one of the best D-lines in the nation. So, I don't think it's that difficult with him just lining up in different positions. It's just the certain things that they run out of it. So,
Jadar, what's the different thoughts going into this process this year, being here, being in the playoff versus last year, the first time?
This year we're just going in with a more experienced attitude. We know how it feels to be here. Last year, I feel like in a sense we were just happy to be there because we had never been there before on a big stage like that. We wasn't really used to all the things that came with it, but now, we know exactly what they expect. So this year, I feel like we've learned a lot from our previous mistakes, and this year we're working real hard to
When you
fix
say
those.
when you say all the things that go with it, I mean, is that media, all the attention?
Just the media, the trip, all of the excess activities that we do. We want to have fun, but at the same time, we have to remember why we came down here, and that's to handle business. So when it's time for practice, when it's time for film, we need to lock in, and then we'll have fun later.
What's it like for you, just your role changing this year as opposed to last year with some of the guys that were here last year?
For me, it's a little different for me because, last year I didn't really have to worry about, making a big contribution to the team. My contribution was smaller last year with the role that I had. This year with me going out there, actually being a main contributor to the defense, it just puts a little extra motivation in my pocket that I want to go out there and just prove that I can do it, and that I won't be the weak link on the team. Coming into the season, a lot of people didn't know who I was, and I was a big question mark on the defense. But I feel like that I've had a pretty decent season, but that's not really what's important right now. It's all about now, like Coach Sweeney always says, this is a season of its own. This is a new season, so really I just need to start from scratch and get back in the film room, practice hard, and just show everybody that I really can't hold my own out here.
Did you feel left out last year at all? Just
Nah,
not
I
having as big
didn't.
of a role, or?
Nah, I didn't feel left out. Obviously I wanted to play because who doesn't want to play? Nobody wants to sit on the sideline. But I didn't feel left out at all because it's definitely a team effort. The few plays that I did get in the playoffs, I went out there and gave my all, and I felt like, that's just the best thing you can do. You can't make them put you on the field, and coaches always make the right decision. They're never wrong. And so now that I have my time this year, I just go out there and do my thing.
Considering the problems the defense had on that third level, especially against Alabama, are you happy this is in your hands this year rather than watching from the sideline?
Yeah, in a sense I am. Just knowing that, I'm glad that it happened last year. Not saying that, I'm glad that the guys that were in messed up. But it was definitely a learning experience for me. Coach Sweeney tells me all the time that wise man learns from another man's mistakes. So me seeing that and seeing how it affected the game is just going to put a big emphasis on the unit this year not to do the same thing. And it just comes down to the little things, just focusing a little harder, keeping our eyes on our keys. And, really, that's really it, But, that's really all it is, just learning from the mistakes last year.
When you think of the last year and how hard it was to get to the title game last year, and then all the hype and the attention in the offseason, can you take stock of the challenge to get back to this point, and you slip up against Pittsburgh, but you guys were able to still make your way in the Final Four?
It really wasn't that hard, man, just because of the culture that Coach Sweeney instilled in us. And it's just all about taking it one game at a time. And that's what we've been doing the whole season, Ever since the first game when we played Auburn, we wasn't worrying about, okay, we need to win this game and then win this game, win that game. It was all Auburn. When we played Troy, it was all Troy, and so on down the line. And if you just look at it like that, and if you just treat every game as a one-game season, you will end up where you want to be. So that's kind of how we did that. We wasn't looking down the road at all.
There's been a trend both in college and both in college and the NFL of the team that loses the title game, it's hard to get back. Why do you think Clemson was different this year, at least in getting back to the playoff?
Like I said, man, it just all goes back to the culture and how we think. And usually when teams get there, there's just such a rush to get back, and they're not really going through the process again like they did the year before. And that's what we did. We just went back through the same exact process, and we really just put it at the back of our mind. I'm pretty sure everybody, they think about the national championship all the time, but that wasn't a big goal on our list. That wasn't the number one goal. And to get to the last goal, you got to do the first goals first. So we went one goal at a time, and once we accomplished all those goals, we ended up back right where we wanted to be.
Have you taken the time to think about your journey? Both Dabo and Brent said last week, Jadar thought about packing his bags and leaving. About the decision to stay, and now you're part of this and really one of the leaders on this defense.
Yeah, I think about it all the time, man. I don't know what I was thinking back then. I'm glad I stuck it through because I was ready to pack my stuff and slide, man. Yeah, I'm definitely glad that I stayed. I had a lot of positive people in my corner. Definitely my family. My family definitely gave me good encouragement. But guys on the staff like Jeff Davis, Coach Trapp was there then. Coach Trapp talked to me. Even Coach Venables had, a lot of encouraging words to say to me when I was going through that. But I'm definitely glad I stuck it through. I came in real young. When I first came here, I was 17. So, I really didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got here. I was just happy to be here when I first got here. And then everything just hit me so fast. And, I really couldn't see the blessing in, but it was definitely a blessing in disguise, because I feel like if I would have played in those earlier years, I definitely wouldn't have been as good as I am now. I wouldn't have reached my, my top level of play. So sitting back in that passenger seat role for as long as I did, it definitely helped me develop as a player.
What was the common thread? What did they tell you that convinced you to stay? They weren't promising you anything, I would think.
They definitely never told me anything specific to look forward to. But they were just telling me trust the process. Trust the process. Everybody doesn't get it right then. But, when you get your chance, you'll have an opportunity. And when you get your chance, it's up to you to do whatever you want to do with it. And I just kind of trusted those words. Man, it was hard, bro. It was so hard. Year after year, like, man, I ain't starting yet. But, when I finally got my chance, I was just so happy, and I just took full advantage of that opportunity.
When I say Curtis Samuel, what's the first thing that comes to mind? What jumps out at you about Curtis Samuel?
Speed.
Yeah.
He's a pretty fast guy, like I said, they put him all over the field. We played against fast guys before, so, I don't want to talk about him like we just so scared of him. He is a good player, but I just don't think that, I don't think he's played a defense like we have yet. Not tooting our own horn or anything, but I just feel like we really have a good defense.
How's your defense different than Michigan's?
Actually, I haven't even really watched Michigan like that. So I really can't speak for them, but the strong points of our defense are just, I feel like a lot of, I've seen a lot of people call us soft. And I don't think we're soft. I just think like we can switch it up. Sometimes we can be a finesse defense. We have a D-line who can, hit the spin moves, or they can power you. So we could be a finesse team or a power team whenever we want to. We have DBs with a lot of speed, good cover skills, but we can also come down and tackle. And we got big, aggressive, well, not real big, Ben is kind of short. Big linebackers, big, strong linebackers who can, come up the field and run, but they also got speed and they can cover too. So I just feel like, we got the best of both worlds when it comes to our defense.
Even in a game like this where a lot of people are picking Clemson to win the whole title, do you still keep that that ever-present chip on the shoulder going into this?
Yeah, definitely. And the crazy thing is, you know, actually I had on the wrong clothes today, so I had to go back to my room and get dressed. And ESPN was on TV. Then I look at ESPN and it was like, Ohio State had I can't remember the exact number, such and such chance to win the game. I know it was kind of high. I'm like, I didn't even know we were the underdogs until then, you know. So, you know, I mean, I really try not to look at stuff like that. Like I said, we just try to, you know, worry about Clemson. That's been a big thing that Coach Sundi's been telling us about. Just worry about Clemson. So as long as we play to our standard, I feel like we'll be all right.
When you talk about you're ready to slide, going back home to Orangeburg, SC State, did Dabo say anything to you before you played the Bulldogs this year?
Oh yeah, he always pick at me about that. You know, you could have been over there on the sideline. You sure you still don't want to go over there? You know, he kind of just joked with me like that. But man, I'm glad I didn't make that decision because you know, sticking up this is definitely one of the best decisions of my life.
And in talking about with this being in your hands, do you look back and think last year maybe there was a little lack of focus from some guys on that back end that maybe they were already looking to the NFL, and this year you're a little more focused?
I don't really want to say the exact reason of why the focus was lost, but yeah, it was definitely a loss of focus in our unit as a whole. I don't really want to individualize anybody. So just as a unit, you know, because, you know, it comes down to that. You know, we can't just say one player did this or one player did that because, you know, when we have leaders in the unit, it's up to the leaders, you know, to straighten out things like that. So,
How close were you to going to South Carolina State?
in my mind, I was close, but I really didn't have a choice. Sweeney wasn't letting me go nowhere.
A little bit related to the question last year, Scott. You guys have been in the playoff this year and last, but if you were in a bowl, players like Fournette and McCaffrey that they choose to sit out because they want to protect their bodies for the next level, could you imagine yourself or someone on this team doing that?
Nah, that's crazy. Like, when I first read it, first I thought it was a joke. Like, I had never heard nothing like that before. Like, you sitting out for a bowl game. And I don't know. I don't understand that. I just don't see the logic in that. You know, a school gives you an opportunity to come and play football, you know, give you an education for free, and you already worrying about the next level. I just feel like that's just thinking too far ahead. And, you know, that's how a lot of players lose focus close to the latter part of the season. Just in general, you know, I just don't agree nothing with that. I feel like if a school can come, you know, and recruit you, give you an education for free, let you play football, you know, it's a lot of stuff. It's really a privilege to play college football. You know, it's a lot of people who wish they were, you know, on the level that we're on. You know, it's people back home. You know, I got people I played in high school with, you know, who didn't get a chance to play college football at all. You know, they still dream about it every day. You know, they go into work every day dreaming, wish I could have played college football.